My brother looked me in the eyes and said it's called family back taxes after demanding money from my inherited house. So I replied, being unemployed for too long makes you come up with funny terms. My older brother Stephen, 31M, just presented me with documents claiming I owe our family $127,000 in back taxes related to property I inherited from our grandmother. He's demanding I transfer ownership of the property to him to settle this supposed debt. I'm shaking as I type this because the documents look official, and I don't know what to do. Let me provide the full background because I think the details matter. 2 years ago, our grandmother Eleanor passed away after a long battle with cancer. I was devastated. She basically raised me after our parents divorced when I was 12. During her final years, I was the one who drove her to chemotherapy appointments, helped her manage her rental property, and spent weekends keeping her company when she could no longer leave the house. Stephen, on the other hand, would show up maybe once every 2 months usually, when he needed money for whatever his latest venture was. When her will was read, I was shocked to learn she left me her rental property in Portland, a duplex worth approximately $450,000 that generates $2,800 per month in rental income. Stephen received her jewelry collection, which appraised at around $15,000, and some savings bonds worth another $10,000. He was furious, screaming at the lawyer that this was blatant favoritism and that Grandma had lost her mind in her final days. He stormed out of the office and didn't speak to me for 3 months. Our father, Robert 59M, is a CPA who runs his own accounting firm. He's always handled the family's finances, including tax preparation for everyone. Even after the divorce, Mom trusted him with her business taxes because whatever else he is, he's good with numbers. Dad stayed neutral during the will reading, just nodding and taking notes. Fast forward to last Tuesday. I was working from home when I heard aggressive knocking at my door. It was Stephen holding a thick manila folder and wearing this strange smile. "We need to talk about your debt to the family," he said, pushing past me into my apartment. He spread out dozens of documents on my kitchen table. There were spreadsheets, calculations, official-looking forms on Dad's CPA firm letterhead, all detailing something called family tax optimization obligations. According to Stephen, while I was living at home during college, and for 2 years after, while starting my business, Dad had structured the family taxes to benefit me. This apparently resulted in the family paying significantly more in taxes than necessary, with the understanding that this would be repaid when I had the means. The documents showed yearly amounts from 2017 to 2022, with detailed line items like income attribution adjustment, dependent benefit recapture, and strategic filing differential. Each year showed amounts between $15,000 and $23,000 with compound interest calculated at 8% annually. The total came to exactly $127,453. "Where are you getting these numbers?" I asked, trying to make sense of the papers. "Dad's been tracking this for years," Stephen replied. "You benefited from tax strategies that cost the rest of us money. Now that you have assets, it's time to settle up. Lucky for you, I'm willing to take the property off your hands and call it even." I asked to see the actual tax returns these calculations were based on, but Stephen claimed those were confidential family documents protected by attorney-client privilege. Dad is also a tax attorney. He said I could either trust the calculations or hire my own forensic accountant to verify them at my own expense, of course. The packet included several documents for me to sign: a family financial reconciliation agreement acknowledging the debt, acquisition claim deed transfer form with Stephen listed as the grantee, a release of claims stating I wouldn't pursue any action against family members, something called a confession of judgment that would allow immediate collection if I defaulted. Stephen had thought of everything. He'd even included a letter from Dad's firm confirming the calculations were accurate based on available family financial records and that payment in full is expected to maintain family harmony. I make $75,000 a year at my job, which is decent, but not spectacular. The rental income from Grandma's property covers the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance with a small profit. Without that income, I'd be struggling. There's no way I could pay $127,000 even if I wanted to. "This is insane," I told Stephen. "I never agreed to any of this. I was a kid living at home, then a struggling entrepreneur. Parents don't charge their children back taxes." Stephen's face darkened. "You always were ungrateful. Do you know how much I sacrificed while you were getting your special treatment? I worked 2 jobs to pay my own expenses while Dad was sheltering your income. Now I'm giving you an easy out. Sign the property over and we're square. Otherwise, I'll have to pursue legal remedies." He left me with a deadline. Sign the documents by the end of the month, or he would file a lien against the property and pursue collection through the courts. He claimed Dad fully supported this action and would testify about the tax arrangements if necessary. I've tried calling Dad 6 times since Tuesday. His secretary says he's in meetings and will return my call, but he hasn't. I drove to his office, but security said I wasn't on the approved visitor list. Even mom, who's been divorced from him for 15 years, can't get through to him. I've been going through my own records trying to find anything about these supposed tax arrangements. I found nothing. No agreements, no mentions in emails, nothing in any tax documents I have copies of. But Stephen's paperwork looks so official, with calculations referencing specific tax code sections and everything. The stress is killing me. I can't sleep, can't eat. My girlfriend Sarah is trying to be supportive, but I can see she's worried. Her parents offer to lend me money for a lawyer, but I'm hesitant to drag them into this family mess. Is any of this even legal? Can parents retroactively charge children for tax benefits received while they were dependent? Does living at home create an implied debt? The documents reference constructive loans and imputed income, but I don't understand what any of that means. I never signed anything agreeing to repay anyone for anything. What scares me most is that Stephen seems so confident. He's not acting like someone running a scam. He's acting like someone collecting a legitimate debt. And with Dad's apparent backing and professional credentials, who would believe me over them? Please help. I don't know where to turn or what to do. The property is all I have of real value, and it represents my grandmother's trust in me. I can't lose it, but I also can't afford a prolonged legal battle. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1 posted 3 days later. The response to my original post was overwhelming and eye-opening. Thank you to everyone who took the time to comment, especially those who pointed out the obvious fraud happening here. Your advice gave me the courage to act, and I've discovered so much more than I initially suspected. Following the recommendation of several commenters, I first went to the county recorder's office to verify the status of my property deed. The clerk, a helpful woman named Melissa, pulled up the records and casually mentioned, "Oh, you're the second person this week asking about this property. Your brother was here last Monday requesting certified copies." My blood ran cold. Why would Stephen need certified copies of my deed unless he was planning something? That afternoon, I borrowed money from Sarah's parents and hired a real estate attorney named Jennifer Chong. The moment I showed her Stephen's documents, her expression went from professional interest to genuine alarm. "This is completely fabricated," she said after just a few minutes of review. "There's no such thing as retroactive family tax obligations. This is attempted fraud on a massive scale." Jennifer immediately drafted a formal demand letter to Stephen requiring him to provide substantiation for these alleged debts within 72 hours. She specifically requested original tax returns showing these optimizations, any signed agreements establishing the debt documentation of family payments made on my behalf, and proof of notification that these were loans rather than gifts. Stephen's response came through a lawyer, which told me he'd been planning this for a while. Instead of tax documents, his attorney sent over what they claimed were family loan agreements dated from 2018 to 2020. These documents supposedly showed that I had borrowed money from a Robertson family trust for living expenses and business startup costs, with the loans secured by future inherited assets. Here's where it gets interesting. I never signed these documents. The signatures were clearly forged, and not even competently. My actual signature from that time period has a distinctive loop in the J of James that these forgeries completely lack. Jennifer had her handwriting expert take a preliminary look, comparing them to apartment leases and employment documents from the same years. His initial assessment: these are amateur forgeries likely traced from a different document. But the real bombshell came when I finally confronted Dad. After being dodged for days, I showed up at his house at 6 a.m. and refused to leave until he talked to me. What he said, which I recorded on my phone, thank God for single-party consent laws, will haunt me forever. "Listen, James," he began, not even trying to deny anything. "Stephen has struggled his whole life while everything came easy to you. You got the looks, the brains, the girlfriend, and now the property. This is just evening things out, by forging documents, by stealing from me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He shrugged. "No court will take your word over mine. I'm a respected CPA with 40 years of experience. I've kept 2 sets of books for the family finances, one showing gifts to both of you, another showing loans only to you. Stephen deserves that property. He's the one who stayed local, who visited me regularly, who named his son after me. I visited Grandma regularly. That's why she left me the property." I protested, and that was her mistake, Dad said coldly. "Family assets should be distributed equally. Since she failed to do that, we're correcting her error." The conversation deteriorated from there, with Dad essentially admitting they'd been planning this since the will reading. He'd been poisoning the well with extended family, telling everyone I was irresponsible with money, that I'd borrowed extensively and never paid it back, that I was taking advantage of family generosity. Meanwhile, Stephen was portrayed as the responsible older brother who sacrificed for the family. After leaving Dad's house, I immediately went to the police. The detective who took my report seemed skeptical at first. Family financial disputes usually aren't criminal matters, But when I showed him the forged documents and played the recording of Dad's confession, his demeanor changed completely. "This is multiple felonies," he said. "Forgery, fraud, conspiracy, attempted grand theft. We'll need to investigate." The stress of all this has been overwhelming. Sarah has been incredible, but I can see it's taking a toll on her too. We've basically moved into her apartment because I don't feel safe at mine anymore. Stephen has been driving by at odd hours, and I've caught him on my doorbell camera trying to peer through windows. The property management company called yesterday with disturbing news. Stephen showed up in the rental property claiming to be the new owner and demanding the tenants pay rent directly to him. He had official-looking documents and everything. Thankfully, the property manager Tom has worked with me since I inherited the building and called me immediately. We had to send a formal cease and desist letter and notify the tenants about the situation. What hurts most is the family fallout. My cousin Michael called last night to express his disappointment in my behavior. Apparently, Stephen and Dad have been telling everyone that I'm refusing to repay significant loans and using legal technicalities to avoid my obligations. My Aunt Patricia, Dad's sister, sent me a long text about how family takes care of family and how ashamed Grandma would be of my selfish behavior. The irony is that I have emails and texts from over the years thanking me for taking care of Grandma, acknowledging that Stephen was absent, praising me for starting my business without asking for help. But now, suddenly, the narrative has completely changed. Jennifer says we have a strong case both civilly and criminally. The forged signatures alone are serious felonies, and the conspiracy charge could add significant time. She's working with the prosecutor's office to coordinate our civil lawsuit with their criminal investigation. I've also hired a forensic accountant to review my actual tax returns from those years. Preliminary findings show that not only were there no special tax optimizations done for my benefit, but I actually paid more in taxes than necessary because Dad insisted on filing my returns in a way that benefited his other client strategies. I was essentially subsidizing his practice without knowing it. This is far from over. Stephen's attorney has indicated they plan to file a lawsuit regardless of the criminal investigation. They're claiming the property transfer to me was done under undue influence since Grandma was sick, and that family loans create an equitable interest in inherited assets. It's all legal nonsense, but it means more attorney fees and more stress. I'll update again when there are major developments. For now, I'm focusing on protecting myself and the property while letting the legal system do its work. To those who asked why I didn't just pay them off to make this go away, it's not about the money anymore. It's about stopping them from stealing what Grandma wanted me to have and showing them that family doesn't mean you can commit crimes without consequences. Update 2 posted 2 weeks later. I need to document everything that's happened in the past 2 weeks while it's still fresh in my mind. My lawyer says this level of detail could be important for both the criminal and civil cases. Apologies for the length, but there's so much to cover. 5 days after my last update, I was served with legal papers at work. In front of my entire office, a process server handed me a thick envelope and loudly announced, "You've been served in the matter of Robertson versus Robertson." My boss pulled me aside later, concerned about what kind of trouble I was in. I had to explain the entire situation, and while he was sympathetic, I could see him mentally calculating the potential disruption to our workplace. Stephen had actually filed a lawsuit claiming ownership of my grandmother's property through something called equitable debt settlement. The complaint was 60 pages long, filled with legal theories about constructive trusts, implied contracts, and unjust enrichment. He wasn't just claiming I owed the fake $127,000 anymore. Now he was saying the property itself was held in trust for the family and should rightfully be his. The lawsuit included affidavit from 3 employees at Dad's CPA firm, swearing they had personally worked on these family tax optimizations. One claimed to remember preparing the loan documents I supposedly signed. Another swore she had processed payments on my behalf from the family trust. The third said he had warned Dad about the tax implications of James's aggressive borrowing. My attorney Jennifer was furious but not surprised. "They're doubling down," she said. "This is actually good for us. Every lie they tell in court documents is another felony charge." Through discovery, we uncovered the full extent of their planning. Stephen had registered SM Property Holdings LLC 6 months ago, well before he ever approached me about any debt. We found correspondence with a developer who was prepared to buy the property for $675,000 cash, with the sale to close immediately upon transfer. Stephen had already spent $12,000 on architectural plans to convert the duplex into 4 luxury condos. The forged loan documents were a work of amateur art. Our forensic document examiner's full report revealed the paper was artificially aged using coffee staining, and the ink was inconsistent with what would have been available in 2018 to 2020, and the formatting matched templates from Microsoft Word 2023, not earlier versions. A metadata in the digital copies showed creation dates from just 2 months ago. Stephen's browser history included searches for how to age documents and making papers look old. But the most damaging discovery came from Dad's office computers. The police executed search warrants and found multiple drafts of the forged documents with track changes showing Stephen and Dad's edits. Emails between them discussing how much they could claim without raising suspicion. A spreadsheet calculating potential profit from the property sale and development. Evidence that Dad had been skimming from other family members' accounts to fund Stephen's lifestyle while creating paper trails, making it look like loans to me. Communications with the 3 employees who provided affidavit coaching them on what to say. The FBI joined the investigation when they discovered Dad had been using his CPA credentials to file fraudulent tax returns for elderly clients, inflating deductions and pocketing the extra refunds. This wasn't just about family fraud anymore. It was a pattern of professional misconduct spanning years. During this time, the personal attacks intensified. Stephen created a Facebook post in our extended family group claiming I was destroying the family over money that I had borrowed extensively and was now using legal tricks to avoid repayment. He posted screenshots of the fake loan documents knowing most family members wouldn't scrutinize them closely. The comments were brutal. "James, how could you do this to your father? Your grandmother would be ashamed. Family helps family. Pay what you owe." Stephen is right to fight for what's fair. I wanted to respond to post the evidence of forgery, but Jennifer advised against it. "Let them hang themselves," she said. "Every public statement they make is evidence of defamation." Then came the restraining order hearing. After Stephen was caught trying to access my mail and attempting to convince my tenants to pay him directly, we filed for protective orders. The hearing was surreal. Stephen showed up in a suit that was clearly new. Tags were still visible on the sleeve and tried to present himself as a concerned brother just trying to collect legitimate debts. The judge wasn't buying it. When presented with evidence of the forgery and Stephen's harassment, she granted a comprehensive restraining order. Stephen was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me, my workplace, or the rental property. The look on his face when the judge called his claims fraudulent on their face was almost worth all this pain. But Stephen wasn't done. That night, he sent emails to my employer, my girlfriend's employer, and even my gym, claiming I was a financial predator who steals from family. He created a website called jamesrobertson.com, filled with lies about my supposed debts and moral failings. He posted my address, phone number, and daily schedule, encouraging people to demand James pay what he owes. This escalation led to his arrest. The combination of violating the restraining order, witness intimidation, and cyberstalking gave the police enough to move. I'll never forget the call from the detective. "We have Stephen in custody. He was arrested at his workplace trying to delete evidence from his computer." Dad's arrest came 2 days later. The FBI raided his office early in the morning, seizing computers, files, and client records. The image of him being let out in handcuffs made the local news. "Respected CPA arrested in fraud scheme" was the headline. His mugshot showed a man who had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The community reaction was swift. Dad's clients started calling Jennifer's office, worried about their own finances. Several elderly clients discovered discrepancies in their accounts going back years. What started as an attempt to steal my property had exposed a much larger pattern of criminal behavior. My mom, who had maintained a cordial relationship with Dad for the sake of family harmony, was devastated. "I always knew he was controlling with money," she told me through tears. "But I never imagined he was a criminal. Now I'm questioning everything about our marriage." She revealed that during their divorce, Dad had claimed poverty, saying his business was struggling. She accepted minimal alimony to help him get back on his feet. Now she's discovering he had hidden assets and manufactured losses. Her lawyer is exploring options to revisit the divorce settlement based on fraud. The financial impact on Stephen has been immediate. His wife Rebecca filed for divorce and froze their joint accounts. His employer placed him on administrative leave pending the outcome of criminal charges. The property developer withdrew their offer, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. The $12,000 he spent on architectural plans is gone. The extended family is slowly learning the truth. My cousin Lisa, an attorney herself, reviewed the documents and was appalled. "These are obviously forged," she told the family group. "I can't believe you all fell for this." She's been instrumental in correcting the narrative, though some relatives remain convinced I must have done something wrong. Current status: both Stephen and Dad are out on bail with strict conditions. They're prohibited from contacting me, accessing any financial documents related to the case, or discussing the matter on social media. Stephen has already violated these conditions twice by having friends post on his behalf, adding to his legal troubles. The criminal cases are moving forward. The prosecutor is confident about convictions based on the evidence. Multiple felony charges for each of them with potential sentences of 5 to 10 years. The FBI's investigation into Dad's client fraud keeps expanding as more victims come forward. The civil lawsuit has been amended to include my counterclaims for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and abuse of process. Jennifer says, "We have one of the strongest cases she's ever seen. They documented their own crimes," she marvels. "It's like they wanted to get caught." The rental property remains secure, though I've had to invest in upgraded security systems and cameras. The tenants have been understanding and patient. I gave them a small rent reduction for the inconvenience of dealing with Stephen's harassment. They've agreed to testify about his attempts to collect rent fraudulently. Through all of this, Sarah has been my anchor. Her parents have covered my legal fees, refusing to let me face this alone. "Family takes care of family," her father said pointedly. "And you're family to us now." Their support has meant everything when my own family has been trying to destroy me. I'm in therapy now, trying to process the betrayal and trauma. My therapist says what I'm experiencing is similar to what cult survivors go through. The complete upheaval of everything I believed about my family. Some days are harder than others. I still wake up sometimes thinking this has all been a nightmare. But I'm surviving. The property is safe. The truth is coming out, and justice, while slow, appears to be working. I'll update again when there are major developments in the criminal cases. For now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward with the people who actually care about me, not just what they can take from me. Update 3, posted 1 month later. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. This past month has brought revelations, resolutions, and a reckoning that has fundamentally changed everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm writing this from a place of exhaustion, but also relief. Stephen's criminal trial was set to begin next week, but 3 days ago, his lawyer contacted the prosecutor about a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming, and Stephen finally realized he was facing serious prison time. In exchange for a guilty plea to fraud and attempted grand theft, other charges would be dropped. The prosecution agreed with conditions. During the plea hearing, Stephen had to describe in detail what he had done. Standing in court in an orange jumpsuit, he couldn't make bail after his third violation. He admitted to forging loan documents with the intent to defraud me, conspiring with our father to steal property through false pretenses, creating fraudulent business entities to facilitate the theft, harassing and intimidating witnesses, violating restraining orders multiple times. The judge was particularly harsh during sentencing. "You betrayed the most fundamental trust that exists, that between siblings." She said your elaborate scheme showed planning persistence and a complete disregard for both the law and family bonds. She sentenced Stephen to 3 years in state prison with 18 months suspended contingent on successful completion of probation and payment of restitution. Stephen's reaction was pitiful. He broke down sobbing, claiming I had stolen his birthright and that Grandma had been manipulated into leaving me the property. Even facing prison, he couldn't accept responsibility. The judge cut him off mid-rant, reminding him that fraud is not a remedy for perceived unfairness in inheritance. Dad's case was more complex due to the federal charges. The FBI's investigation had uncovered a decade-long pattern of client fraud totaling over $200,000. Elderly clients trusted him with their life savings, and he systematically stole from them in small amounts he thought wouldn't be noticed. One victim, an 82-year-old widow, had lost $30,000 earmarked for her grandchildren's education. Dad initially maintained his innocence, hiring a high-profile defense attorney and preparing for trial. But when his lawyer saw the evidence, particularly the emails explicitly planning the fraud against me, he strongly recommended a plea deal. Dad agreed to plead guilty to wire fraud, tax fraud, and conspiracy charges. His sentencing was last Tuesday. The federal judge reviewed victim impact statements from 17 elderly clients who had been defrauded. Several spoke in person, describing how they had trusted Dad for decades, how he had attended their spouses' funerals and their grandchildren's graduations, all while stealing from them. When it was my turn to speak, I talked about more than the attempted theft. I described how Dad had weaponized family relationships, how he had turned relatives against me with lies, how he had corrupted Stephen's sense of entitlement into criminal action. He didn't just try to steal property, I said. He tried to steal my grandmother's love and trust, to retroactively poison her final gift to me. Dad was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with no possibility of early release. He must pay full restitution to all victims over $200,000 and will never practice accounting again. At 59, his professional life is over. The judge called his abuse of fiduciary duty reprehensible and noted that his CPA credentials made his crimes particularly egregious. Dad's only statement was to blame me for destroying the family. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Even facing prison, he maintained that he was just trying to correct an unfair situation. The courtroom was silent as the marshal led him away. The civil lawsuit settlement was finalized last week. The judgment included a $75,000 in compensatory damages for defamation and emotional distress, $40,000 in legal fees. Every penny Jennifer charged, a punitive damages of $50,000 due to the malicious nature of the fraud. A formal written apologies that must be sent to every family member they contacted with lies, a permanent restraining orders preventing any contact. Since neither Stephen nor Dad has liquid assets, Dad's were frozen for victim restitution. I'll receive payments through wage garnishment and asset seizure. I don't expect to collect the full amount, but that was never the point. This was about justice and protecting what Grandma left me. The family dynamics have shifted dramatically. The relatives who supported Stephen and Dad have gone quiet, though few have apologized. Aunt Patricia sent a tear message saying she may have been hasty in her judgment. Cousin Michael admitted he should have looked at the documents more carefully before taking sides, but others have stepped forward with their own stories. My Aunt Helen revealed that Dad had handled her deceased husband's estate, and she now suspects he skimmed from it. Cousin David discovered discrepancies in a family trust Dad managed. The full extent of his betrayals may never be known. Mom has been vindicated in her long-held suspicions about Dad's financial manipulations during their marriage. Her lawyer successfully reopened their divorce settlement based on fraud, and she's expected to receive significant additional assets. I always knew something was off, she told me, but he made me feel crazy for questioning. Stephen's ex-wife Rebecca and I have developed an unexpected friendship through this ordeal. She's been incredibly strong, managing the divorce while protecting their children from the worst of the scandal. I've set up education funds for my nephews. They shouldn't suffer for their father's crimes. Rebecca cried when I told her, saying it was more grace than Stephen ever showed anyone. The rental property is not only safe but thriving. The notoriety actually helped in a strange way. When one unit became vacant, I had dozens of applications from people who had followed the case and wanted to support someone who stood up to family fraud. I selected tenants based on merit, not sympathy. But it was heartening to see the community support. I've used some of the rental income to upgrade security throughout the building. Every entrance has cameras. All locks have been changed to smart locks, and I've hired a property management company to create another layer between me and any potential harassment. The property that Stephen tried to steal is now more secure than ever. Therapy has been essential in processing this trauma. My therapist helped me understand that my father and brother likely have narcissistic personality disorders, viewing others only in terms of what they can provide. The entitlement, the lack of empathy, the willingness to destroy relationships for personal gain, it all fits a pattern. You were not just defending property, my therapist explained. You were defending your right to exist independently of their control. That framing has helped me process the guilt I sometimes feel about sending family members to prison. They made their choices. I simply refused to be their victim. Sarah and I got engaged last month. Her parents joke that after seeing me handle the worst possible family situation with grace and determination, they have no concerns about me joining their family. The proposal was simple and private. After everything, I wanted something just for us, untainted by drama. We're planning a small wedding with only the family members who supported us through this ordeal. Stephen won't be invited, obviously, and Dad will be in federal prison. It's sad but also freeing. We're building our own family now, one based on trust and genuine love rather than manipulation and entitlement. The grandmother's property will eventually be our home. We're planning to move into one unit after the wedding and continue renting the other. It feels right to live in the place Grandma left me to build our life on the foundation of her love and trust. Stephen wanted to turn it into luxury condos. We're going to fill it with family and laughter. I've learned so much through this experience. I document everything always. My habit of keeping emails and texts saved me. I trust your instincts. Something felt wrong from the beginning, and I should have trusted that feeling sooner. A real family shows up when things get hard. Sarah's parents, Rebecca, the cousins who investigated the truth. They're my real family. A standing up to bullies is hard but necessary. Giving in would have only enabled more abuse. A professional credentials don't equal trustworthiness. Dad's CPA license made his crimes possible. A justice takes time but is worth pursuing. The truth does come out eventually. Looking back, the saddest part isn't the attempted theft or even the prison sentences. It's the waste. Stephen had abilities and opportunities. Dad had a successful practice and respected position. They threw it all away for greed and pride. They destroyed their own lives trying to destroy mine. But I survived. More than that, I thrived. I kept the property, found my chosen family, and discovered strength I didn't know I had. Grandma's gift wasn't just the building. It was the opportunity to stand up for myself and prove worthy of her trust. To anyone facing similar family fraud, document everything. Get legal help immediately, and don't let emotional manipulation stop you from protecting yourself. Family doesn't mean accepting abuse. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold people accountable for their actions. This chapter of my life is closing. Stephen will serve his time. Dad will serve his. I'll continue building my life with people who actually love me. The property is safe, the truth is known, and justice has been served. Thank you to everyone who followed this story and offered support. Your encouragement helped me through the darkest moments. May none of you ever need this knowledge, but if you do remember, you have the right to defend yourself even from family, especially from family. Grandma Eleanor would be proud. That's all that really matters.